In this short video, I'm going to focus on an important part of local history in western Pennsylvania. That is, the path of the Johnstown flood of 1889. I'm standing here at the Johnstown Flood National Memorial, and behind me you can see the remnants of the South Fork Dam. When the poorly reconstructed earthen dam broke on May 31st, 1889, in part due to a storm that dumped up to 8 inches of rain in 26 hours, it sent 15.5 million tons of water down 13 miles a narrow valley, hitting the industrial town of Johnstown. It was and still is one of the worst disasters in American history, with over 2,200 people being killed and up to $17 million in damages, which is the equivalent of $440 million in today's money.
The dam broke all at once, between 2:50 and 2:55 p.m. John Park, an engineer then temporarily working for the South Fork Hunting and Fishing Club who owned the dam, said that it simply moved away. The wave, moving at the velocity of Niagara Falls, first hit into a mountain directly below it, and then rushed down the South Fork of the Little Conemaugh River toward the town of South Fork 2 miles away. Being a short distance from the dam, the town of South Fork received several warnings that the dam might break, and those same warnings were also sent down the valley toward Johnstown over telegraph wires and runners. As the town was located on the hillside, only 20 houses were destroyed and 3 people died, 1 resident of the town and 2 workers of the Pennsylvania Railroad. The wave of water here was estimated at 50 feet high, and to observers it already looked not just like a wave of water, but a mountain coming down, because of trees, stumps, houses, rocks, and dirt that the water pushed down with it. Local freight conductor Jerry Stormer recalled, "I just gave one look, and it looked to me like a mountain coming down. I didn't take a second look." Conductor Vance of the Limited East heard the noise and roar of water coming, with nothing but trees and houses in front of it. When the wave again hits a mountain, a portion of the water moved up the North Fork of the Little Conemaugh River toward Ehrenfeld, a small town named after the telegraph operator at the time, Emma Ehrenfeld. But because it could not continue to move uphill, it subsided and moved back downhill. Freight conductor Brantlinger, who barely escaped, remembered that preceding the wave of water was a gust of wind, and he had to hold on to bushes along the side of the hill. When I jumped off the engine, it wasn't quite at me yet, and I went up for the hill, and it was so slippery when I would get up a piece, I would slip back. The second time, the water got to me, and of course I went back the second time, and then a big wave came right in there, and it raised me right up, and I got hold of a limb of a tree, and as the water raised, I went along from one brush to another. It was horrible, I tell you. He also recalled how there was a gust of wind that preceded the wave that was worse than the water, for when the air struck me, it seemed to lift me right off the ground. And he noted that it made a terrible noise. You would think the whole earth was being torn up. The wave next hit the viaduct of the Pennsylvania Railroad, which was a famous landmark in the area, a 1-arch, 75-foot stone bridge built so that the railroad did not have to traverse a 2-mile roundabout or hogback, as they called it. Debris jammed up behind the viaduct and the dam reformed. Again, the water began overtopping the viaduct and washing away the abutments until the pressure collapsed the bridge and the wave continued downhill. The wave then hit the small town of Mineral Point, where 16 people died and 30 houses were destroyed. The tower operator at MP Tower, Pickerel, heard a roar, looked up the track, and saw the wave and debris. I saw a man standing on a house roof. As the man was being swept by a small wave that preceded the main wave, he looked over and seen me and recognized me. He said, "Mineral Point is all swept away, and the people swept away, and my whole family is gone." I said, "Is that so? Do you know anything of my family?" He said, "No, I don't. I think they were all drowned." The man, Christ Montgomery, and Pickerel's family, though, both survived. The telegraph line was down from Mineral Point to A.O. Tower, so Pickerel had previously sent 2 runners, L.L. Rusher and William Reichert, down to A.O. Tower and tower operator Shade to relay the messages warning Johnstown about the possibility that the dam might break. The waters at South Fork Dam are very high, and it is liable to break at any moment. Notify people of Johnstown and vicinity to prepare for the worst. A second 2-mile loop meant that the Pennsylvania Railroad had constructed another bridge at an area known as the Deep Cut, near Buttermilk Falls, Rail Bridge NO number 6, which was a truss bridge. The loop no longer exists because it had been filled in mostly with steel slag. Assistant Superintendent of the Pennsylvania Railroad, Mr. Trump, who was leading a work party in the area at the time, recalled that the same action that occurred at the viaduct was repeated at Bridge 6 below. After reaching AO Tower, Mr. Webb and 2 or 3 more of us ran up to Bridge 6 and noticed the water coming through the cut east of this point, probably 15 or 20 feet high. The water then was running in the stream about level with the rail in the middle of the bridge. We had hardly been there more than 2 or 3 minutes when the bridge went out, the abutments, the pier, and the whole structure. The water dammed up against the hill and ran throughout the cut 20 feet deep onto the bridge and undermined the top of the bridge, and another dam was formed there, so that when the bridge went out, the dam really was transferred to Bridge 6, not over a mile and a half from Conemaugh, so that after it was liberated from Bridge 6, it went down the valley there in an immense wave, and that was what caused the heavy waves so close to Conemaugh and Johnstown. In other words, it was just as if there were 2 dams like the South Fork Dam between it and Johnstown. The time was 3:40, and we know this because the clock at AO Tower stopped. It is also thought that besides these 2 moments when the dam reformed, the accumulation of debris itself in the narrow valley often jammed up the water until the pressure broke the jam, crashing down only to repeat the process once again. Conductor Keltz remembered that it looked like a large hill rolling over and over. Engineer John Hess, in charge of work train number 2, had been previously ordered to clear mudslides from the track, but when he learned the track was washed out between Bridge 6 and Mineral Point, he decided to go back to Conemaugh. On the way back down, he didn't see the wave, but he heard it. He later said that it was like a hurricane through a wooded country. It was a roar and a crash and a smash. He then tied down the whistle and raced toward Conemaugh 500 yards away, warning the people there. He said, "I didn't know what else to do. I didn't see what else I could do." When the wave hit the town of Conemaugh, it spread throughout the valley 230 feet wide and was then 30 feet high, and it destroyed half of the town. Most people heard Hess's warning, though, and escaped up the mountain, including my great-great-grandmother, who was a child at the time. Though there were people killed, mostly the passengers from the First Day Express. It was preceded by a wave 4 feet high and a white mist. Track foreman, Stormer, though, said, "I looked up in the mountain there where the channel is narrow, where the river hasn't much of a channel, and it looked to me about 60 or 80 feet high, and that it looked like a mountain of trees." Conductor Charles Warthen of the mail train said, "It looked more like a forest coming than water at first. All the rubbish, trees, and everything were coming right ahead of it." Fireman Miller of the Second Day Express said it looked like a big sandhill coming. It was full of driftwood, trees, railroad ties, rails, and everything. It was just black with drift. At Woodvale, with a population of 1,000 people, approximately 300 or 1 in 3 were killed and the town was destroyed. An explosion at the Gautier Ironworks formed a black cloud that then preceded the wave before it hit Johnstown. Downtown Johnstown, located in between the Little Conemaugh and the Stony Creek rivers, where 10,000 people lived, was already flooded with 4 to 10 feet of water. The wave hit at 4:07 and split in 3 parts. The main wave hit Yoder Hill, which I am standing on, and where the inclined plane is currently located. It then moved up the Stony Creek, but could not continue uphill, so it swirled back, creating a whirlpool. Houses and debris then piled at the Pennsylvania Railroad's 7-arch stone bridge, reforming the dam once again in Johnstown. Survivors had to either run to their attics, hold on to rooftops, or float down on debris. Looking beyond the stone bridge, the supervisor of the Pennsylvania Railroad from Conemaugh to Latrobe, W.M. Hayes, remembered that the houses were packed so close together that you could scarcely see the water. Eventually, the earthen abutment to the bridge gave way and the water flowed out where it flooded the Cambria Ironworks and Cambria City, causing more death and damage. To make matters worse, the debris, including a lot of coal from all of the coal stoves, ignited and burned for 3 days. An estimated 80 people died in the inferno. At Sang Hollow, located within the Conemaugh Gap, Robert Pitcairn, the superintendent of the Western Division of the Pennsylvania Railroad, who was heading east to check on washouts, observed that the water had quickly rose 6 or 8 feet and hundreds of survivors floated down the river. Pitcairn would later return to Pittsburgh and make a short speech to the citizens of Pittsburgh of what he had personally saw and what he had heard, which commenced the relief effort. The last stop is here in Seward, which was called the town of Nineveh at the time, where survivors were seen floating on down the river on debris. Ropes were thrown out to try to save them, but eventually over 100 bodies would be found here. After the floodwaters passed through Nineveh, they continued down the Conemaugh River towards Pittsburgh, the Ohio and Mississippi rivers. The next day, recovery and relief efforts commenced, as news of the disaster spread throughout the United States and the world.